The palace kitchens woke before the sun, long before the first rooster dared to challenge the darkness. Stone floors still held the night's cold, seeping through cloth shoes and into tired bones. Above, massive wooden beams loomed like silent elders, dark with age and smoke. Steam rose from clay rice pots in slow, curling breaths, as though the kitchen itself were half asleep and sighing. Fires crackled gently, tended by junior cooks whose eyes were heavy but whose hands moved by memory alone. For most, it was another morning of labor. For Lin Xiaoyu, it was the morning vegetables found their voices. Xiaoyu was not extraordinary to look at. She was small, sturdy in the way village girls often were, with rounded cheeks kissed brown by sun and wind. Her eyes curved naturally into smiles even when she tried to look serious, which often made people underestimate her. She had arrived at the palace kitchens 3 months earlier carrying a cloth bundle of clothes, a knife wrapped carefully in oil paper, and a letter stamped by a local steward who owed her father a long-forgotten favor. She had never trained under a master. She had never memorized a recipe scroll. But she could smell oil readiness without looking. She could hear when water boiled just right. She knew when salt was enough by how the pot answered her stirring. The head chef noticed, grumbled, tested her twice more, then allowed her to stay. This morning, Xiaoyu tied her hair with a faded ribbon and stepped up to her assigned chopping table. The wood was scarred from decades of knives, every mark a story of meals long past. A large woven basket waited patiently, filled to the brim. Onions round pale, tightly layered. Carrots straight and proud, bright as lacquer. Eggplants long glossy, almost smug. Chilies thin, sharp, restless. And sitting atop them all like a ruler surveying his court, a cabbage full, green, and unmistakably judgmental. Xiaoyu reached for the onion. Her knife descended. Thunk. Not the onion again. The voice cut through the kitchen sharper than the blade itself. Xiaoyu froze. Her fingers tightened around the knife handle. Her breath stopped halfway in her chest. The world seemed to tilt just slightly, as though the kitchen had shifted out of place. She listened. Water splashed. A cook coughed. Firewood cracked. But that voice, clear, irritated, undeniably close, lingered in her ears. Slowly she lifted the onion. Did someone speak?" she whispered. "Yes," the onion replied with a sniff. "And you heard it perfectly well. Don't insult us by pretending otherwise." Xiaoyu's knees weakened. The onion sat solid and cool in her palm. It had no mouth, no eyes, no spirit glow. It was just an onion. "This knife is far too sharp," the onion continued. "Last time you barely gave me a moment to accept my fate, completely inconsiderate." Xiaoyu's knife slipped and struck the board at an odd angle. She staggered back. "I haven't eaten," she whispered desperately. "This is hunger. Hunger makes people imagine things." "Hunger makes people steal buns," said another voice. "Not hear vegetables complain." She turned slowly. The carrot, she realized. "Diagonal cuts again last time," the carrot continued. Everyone stared, very embarrassing. The cabbage shifted atop the pile, leaves rustling with authority. "Enough chatter. Maintain dignity. We are palace vegetables, not market scraps." Xiaoyu clapped both hands over her mouth. Vegetables were talking. Not chanting spells. Not glowing with spirit light. Just complaining. "I've gone mad," she breathed. "Mad," scoffed the chili. "Try being fried every single day. That's madness." "At least frying is quick," the onion muttered. "Chopping is slow despair." A junior cook passed by and frowned. "Why are you staring at vegetables like they insulted your ancestors?" Xiaoyu jumped. Nothing, just checking freshness." The cook laughed and walked on. The vegetables burst into quiet snickers. "She lies terribly," said the eggplant. Xiaoyu leaned close and hissed, "Please be quiet. If anyone hears you. If anyone hears us, corrected the cabbage calmly, then perhaps the world will finally understand our suffering. Her heart pounded. Why can I hear you? She whispered. The onion paused. Because you cook with feeling. Or because she cries when chopping us, added the carrot. That's because of the onion, Xiaoyu snapped. Exactly, said the onion smugly. A distant gong rang. The head chef was coming. Xiaoyu straightened, gripping her knife. I don't have time for this, I have to cook. Oh, we'll help, said the chili brightly, by expressing opinions. She raised the blade. Careful, screamed the carrot. That angle is rude. Xiaoyu chopped. The vegetables screamed. The onions criticized rhythm. The carrots complained about thickness. The chilies cursed the oil. The eggplants debated philosophy. Xiaoyu's head rang, sweat dripping down her back as the kitchen roared around her. Panic threatened to rise, but beneath it, instinct took over. She adjusted, listened, balanced. Somehow impossibly, the dish came together. And when the bowl was finished, the vegetables fell silent. Satisfied, Xiaoyu stared at the steaming food, heart racing. Her life had changed. She just didn't know how much yet. If Chapter 1 was confusion, Chapter 2 was disaster given form. The moment Xiaoyu lifted her knife again, the vegetables realized something terrifying. She could hear them. And once vegetables know they are heard, they never stop talking. Too thick, the onion shouted as the blade came down. Too thin, the carrot argued immediately. That slice was uneven, sniffed the eggplant. I will absorb oil improperly and everyone will blame me. I demand respect, yelled the cabbage from the basket. I am meant to be shredded ceremonially. Xiaoyu clenched her teeth. Steam rose. Sweat dripped. Her knife moved faster. The chilies were the worst. Why am I always fried? One shrieked as it slid toward the hot oil. Why not steamed or pickled or admired raw? Because you're spicy, Xiaoyu hissed under her breath. Labeling, the chili screamed. Unacceptable. Oil popped violently, as if agreeing. Xiaoyu stirred the wok. Too hot. Too cold. Why are we touching onions? I specifically requested distance, complained the carrot. The wok became a battlefield of sizzling arguments. A senior cook stopped beside her station. Why is your fire flaring like that? Xiaoyu forced a smile. The vegetables are energetic today. The cook laughed and moved on. The vegetables burst into laughter. She lies badly under pressure, the eggplant observed. Xiaoyu nearly cried. By mid-morning, she had ruined 3 dishes. One was too salty. One burned. One tasted perfect, but looked so chaotic that the head chef refused to serve it. You, he snapped, pointing at Xiaoyu, used to be quiet. Focused, what happened? Xiaoyu bowed low. Forgive me, Master Chef. Behind her, the cabbage coughed politely. She's under emotional strain. Silence, Xiaoyu whispered furiously. The head chef narrowed his eyes. What did you say? In nothing, I thank the cabbage, I mean counter. The head chef frowned but walked away. Xiaoyu sagged against the table. You're going to get me executed, she whispered. Unlikely, said the onion. Executions are dramatic, this is slow humiliation. Lunch service approached like an execution drum. Xiaoyu was assigned a simple stir-fry, ordinary, safe. She inhaled deeply. Listen, she whispered to the vegetables. If I lose this job, we all end up as scraps. The vegetables quieted. That's persuasive, admitted the carrot. Xiaoyu cooked. She listened, but she also chose. When the onion complained, she adjusted, but not fully. When the chili screamed, she lowered the flame, but not enough to weaken it. She began negotiating. The dish came together. Balanced, lively. The head chef tasted it. He paused. He tasted again. "This is strange," he murmured. "It's noisy but in harmony." Xiaoyu's heart slammed. "It's good," he said finally. "Very good." The vegetables erupted into cheers. "Victory," shouted the chili. "Told you diagonal cuts were superior," said the carrot smugly. The head chef glanced at Xiaoyu sharply. "Why are you smiling at the food?" Xiaoyu straightened. "Because it makes me happy to cook." "HMPH," he said. "From today you assist in the inner kitchen." Gasps rippled. Xiaoyu bowed so deeply her forehead touched the floor. That night, alone in her narrow sleeping quarters, Xiaoyu lay staring at the ceiling. "You got me promoted," she whispered. "Yes," said the onion proudly. "But don't get comfortable," added the chili. "Tomorrow we complain louder." Xiaoyu groaned into her pillow. Chaos, she realized, had only just begun. The inner kitchen was nothing like the outer one. Where the outer kitchens shouted, the inner kitchens whispered. Every sound seemed restrained. Knives tapped instead of struck. Lids were lifted rather than slammed. Even the fires burned lower, as if afraid of being noticed. The walls here were smoother, the floors cleaner, and the air carried a faint, constant tension that clung to the skin. This was where food for the emperor and his closest circle was prepared. This was where mistakes did not remain mistakes. They became memories. Xiaoyu entered the inner kitchen with her head bowed and heart pounding so hard she worried others might hear it. Her promotion had come too quickly. Yesterday she had been washing vegetables at the back tables. Today she stood among senior cooks whose sleeves bore subtle embroidery, marks of rank she did not yet understand. "Don't trip," whispered the onion from her basket. "Don't talk," Xiaoyu whispered back through barely moving lips. "I'm offering emotional support," the onion replied. The cabbage cleared its throat importantly. "We are now imperial ingredients. Conduct yourselves with dignity." The chili snorted. "I refuse dignity. I demand excitement." Xiaoyu swallowed and took her assigned station. Her task was simple. Too simple. Prepare a vegetable stew for the emperor's evening meal. No strong spices. No experimental techniques. "Clean, honest, balanced," the head chef had said, eyes sharp. "Do not be clever." Xiaoyu nodded, though her palms were already damp. She laid out the vegetables carefully. "Onions first." She hesitated, then whispered, "How would you like to be cut?" The onion paused, startled. "Thick slices, let me be felt." She obeyed. "Carrot." "Diagonal," the carrot said softly, but not dramatic, subtle elegance. Xiaoyu adjusted her angle. The vegetables murmured instead of shouted. The inner kitchen seemed to notice. A senior cook glanced at her station, frowning slightly, then moved on. As the stew simmered, Xiaoyu stirred slowly, carefully, as though calming a restless child. "This pot is too quiet," the chili whispered suspiciously. "Quiet is good," Xiaoyu replied. "I feel unheard," the chili insisted. "You're in the emperor's stew," she hissed. "Be honored." The chili considered. "Fine." The dish finished without disaster. Too smoothly. That frightened Xiaoyu more than chaos ever had. The head chef tasted first, as tradition demanded. He closed his eyes, breathing in the steam. Then he opened them. "Strange," he murmured. Xiaoyu's heart dropped. "It's lively," he said slowly, "as if the ingredients are conversing." Xiaoyu froze. The vegetables froze. The cabbage nearly fainted. "This will be served," the head chef decided, watching Xiaoyu carefully. "The emperor enjoys unusual things." The bowl was carried away. Minutes passed. They stretched into years. Xiaoyu stood motionless, mind racing with images of punishment, exile, worse. Then footsteps approached. A palace attendant bowed. The emperor requests the cook responsible for the vegetable stew. The inner kitchen went silent. Xiaoyu's knees weakened. "Remember," whispered the onion urgently, "deny everything." "You talk too much," added the carrot. Xiaoyu followed the attendant, each step echoing too loudly in her ears. The emperor sat behind a low table, posture relaxed, eyes sharp with curiosity. He gestured for her to rise. "You cooked the stew," he said. "Yes, your majesty." "How did you prepare it?" Xiaoyu hesitated. "I listened," she said finally. The court officials stiffened. "Listened?" the emperor repeated, amused. "To the ingredients," Xiaoyu said softly. "They know what they want to become." Silence. Then the emperor laughed. "A cook with imagination," he said. "Rare, dangerous, interesting." Xiaoyu pressed her forehead to the floor. "I like this dish," the emperor continued. "Continue cooking as you see fit." Relief crashed over her. The chili whispered triumphantly, "He heard us." "No," Xiaoyu murmured, "only me." That night back in her small room, Xiaoyu sat on her bed, hands shaking slightly. She had crossed a line. The vegetables had voices. And now the emperor was listening. Fame is louder than firewood crackling in a kitchen. News of Xiaoyu's talent had spread faster than a hot wok could sizzle. Senior cooks whispered about the village girl who could make vegetables talk. Assistants gawped at her skill. Even the palace gardeners joked, tossing fresh produce toward her table and watching to see what she would do. The vegetables, however, were not impressed. "I refuse to be steamed again," the carrot cried. "Sesame oil, you forgot sesame oil," demanded the chili spinning in the basket. "I will not share a pot with tofu," announced the cabbage, standing tall as though ready to duel. Xiaoyu's head throbbed. Each day became a cacophony of opinions. She chopped, diced, sautéed, and braised, trying desperately to satisfy both the demands of the palace and the ever-growing voices of her ingredients. Each slice, each stir was met with advice, protest, or critique. Too thick, too thin, too oily, too dry. Some days she wished she could just scream back. Finally, one evening, she could take no more. "Enough," she shouted, startling even the head chef who had entered quietly. "Your ingredients, not ministers. I am the cook, not a diplomat." The kitchen fell silent. The cabbage spoke softly. "We complain because no one listens. We are alive in a way people cannot understand." Xiaoyu's anger drained, replaced by exhaustion and empathy. "I listen," she said quietly, "but you must trust me too. You cannot run the kitchen yourselves." The vegetables, still and thoughtful, seemed to consider her words. The chili twitched once, then settled. The carrot bowed slightly. The cabbage relaxed its leaves. Balance returned. Cooking became a dance rather than a debate. Xiaoyu learned to negotiate silently, to anticipate needs, and to lead with subtle authority. She cut, she stirred, she seasoned, with skill, instinct, and patience. The dishes improved. The head chef noticed. The girl has finally learned to manage not just ingredients, but the orchestra of her kitchen. Xiaoyu smiled, quietly proud. Yet she knew the voices would return. Tomorrow they would chatter, argue, and bicker. That was certain, and she would listen and guide and continue to create. Harmony was fragile, but now she understood how to maintain it. The Lantern Festival approached, carrying the palace into a world of colored lights, flickering lanterns, and shadows dancing along the halls. The air smelled of burning wicks and sweet pastries, a scent that promised both celebration and anticipation. Xiaoyu entered the inner kitchen, feeling the weight of expectation. This night would not be like any other. This was a festival where the emperor observed, where the court's eyes were sharper than the blades of the finest knives, and where even the slightest mistake could ripple through the entire palace. The vegetables, surprisingly subdued, seemed to sense the gravity. No yelling, no protests. The onion looked contemplative. The carrot stood rigid with purpose. The cabbage bowed solemnly, acknowledging the importance of the occasion. Xiaoyu began chopping. The knife moved with grace, guided by instinct and experience. She whispered instructions gently, more like encouragement than commands. "Diagonal subtle," she said to the carrot. "Feel appreciated," she murmured to the onion. "Balance dignity," she instructed the cabbage. Even the chili, normally irrepressible, twitched in silent agreement. The stew and stir-fry came together seamlessly. The aroma rose like incense, drifting through the palace corridors, teasing the court and drawing curious glances from attendants. The emperor arrived, dressed in ceremonial robes, eyes scanning for perfection. He seated himself at the festival table, waiting. Xiaoyu served quietly, her heart calm. Each dish told a story, each vegetable placed with care, each seasoning measured by instinct and affection. He tasted the stew, paused, smelled it again, then sampled the stir-fry. His eyes lit with surprise. "This is the best dish yet," he said, voice low but resonant enough to reach the cooks behind him. Xiaoyu exhaled softly, relief flooding through her. The vegetables sighed too, tiny murmurs of contentment that she alone could hear. "Finally," said the onion, voice soft with satisfaction. "Peace," whispered the cabbage, rustling leaves gently. The chili yawned. "Tomorrow I complain again," it said, a faint smile in its tone. Xiaoyu laughed, a warm sound that echoed through the quiet kitchen. She looked at her ingredients, at the glowing lanterns above, at the happy faces of the palace staff enjoying the festival. Harmony had been achieved. For one night at least, voices were balanced, arguments were gentle, and the palace knew a rare taste of true culinary artistry. She bowed quietly to the emperor. "Thank you for your patience," she whispered. "Cook," the emperor said with a smile, "never stop listening, it suits you." Xiaoyu's smile widened. She glanced at the basket of vegetables, each resting quietly, finally at peace. Some things never change. Some things, like voices and complaints, would always return. And some things, like a cook who listens, can turn chaos into art.
Thanks for tuning in to Hot Soup Stories. If you love audio stories, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your encouragement keeps our stories coming.